Backrooms is the first feature film by director Kane Parsons and stars Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renat Rensiv. The film is based on the viral hit of the same name created by Parsons on his YouTube channel called Kane Pixels. Both the YouTube series and this film feature a location known as the Backrooms, a series of endless office-style rooms with overhead fluorescent lighting and mysterious entities, encounters with which don't go well for whoever might be exploring there. The film follows Ejiofor, who is playing Clark, a down-on-his-luck furniture store owner. When we meet Clark, he's not in a good place. He's been living in the furniture store that he owns after being kicked out of his home by his wife. What we find out during the therapy sessions is due to his anger issues and his alcoholism. It's during these therapy sessions that we meet Dr. Mary Klein, a woman with her own traumatic past, but who, overall, seems to be a far more successful person and a bit more put together than Clark. Over the course of the film, Clark discovers the entrance to the titular Backrooms, and we follow as he explores and uncovers this mysterious place. Without getting into spoilers, I'll say that the film works on many different levels, even if it isn't wholly satisfying in all aspects of the story it's trying to tell. As a fan of the original YouTube series, I was happy to be back in this place that I'd only known and never seen really in the 90s era video quality filter that was put over the series. While I appreciate the aesthetic and style of the found footage genre and what it could really bring to a story, it was refreshing to see the Backrooms realized in a physical, high-resolution form in such a really well-done cinematic fashion. Kudos to the DP. The film does a great job of putting the audience in the perspective of the main character, and all the actors do a great job of selling how, I think, we would all react to finding a wall that we could suddenly walk through and a series of endless halls and rooms with very sort of abstract shapes and furniture. The only unrealistic thing I felt while watching the characters explore the rooms was just how much trepidation they expressed as they walked through them. I understand there's a need to build up the back rooms. Obviously you want to take your time as you explore this real physical location, but the slow pace at which the characters move through the space felt somewhat unrealistic, and ultimately I found myself wanting them to move a bit more quickly and reveal more of what the actual place has to offer. We see this in latter portions of the film, especially when characters are being chased, but early on I felt the exploration just dragged a little. Performance-wise, all the actors represent their characters well and do the dialogue they've been given justice. Ejiofor's Clark is especially well done for what he has to do during the course of the film and how his character has to ultimately evolve over the course of the film as we learn about his story and his arc. Additionally, Rensiv's Mary serves as a great counterpoint to his character, providing a more level-headed and measured figure who works to help Clark beyond just being his therapist. The few supporting characters also do their best with the small roles they've been given, even though, again, it's not much. Despite these great performances, the writing toward the end of the film could have been a bit stronger and more convincing, especially since the audience has to absorb a lot of new information and understand character motivations and shifts. In general, I found some of the characters' motivations in the final third of the film somewhat unconvincing, and I think this may have been due to ultimately the way that they were portrayed in the writing. If you're going into this film looking to get all the answers about the Backrooms and where it came from, you might be a little disappointed. While the film does provide a ton of answers and helps flesh out the world's lore, it also keeps many close to its chest, probably holding them back for inevitable sequels or maybe even prequels. I'll talk in more detail about what's revealed in the spoiler section of this review, and after my final thoughts are given on the film. In all, I think this was a really good film. It kept me engaged and interested through the majority of its runtime. It presented a believable world with a suitably creepy location for viewers to explore. I just wish it provided a bit more background on the rooms. It's enough for theory crafters to chew on for the next couple of years leading up to either the next film or the next video in the YouTube series. And, being that it was directed by someone as young as Parsons goes to show that youth and inexperience are not defining factors in what makes a film good or bad. What matters when choosing who to helm a film is vision, and supporting and surrounding that visionary with highly skilled professionals who can help them achieve it. For example, The first assistant director is the most important person on set and instrumental toward ensuring a film is executed properly and on time, and the producers of this film connected Parson with an experienced one in the form of Quincy Wheeler Hendren, who has helmed a number of projects over his more than 20-year career, including the feature film Eternity and the TV show Under the Bridge. The fact that he's been assistant directing longer than Parsons has been alive is also kind of funny to me. It's common to pair first-time directors with seasoned firsts, and I think this film's success is owed as much to the experience of the people who helped and supported Parsons as it is to his actual vision. Would I recommend this film? Yes, very much so. I think it's a well-presented story that intrigues throughout and would give most audiences a good time. For fans of the web series, this will be an especially satisfying film, even if it doesn't answer every question they might have about the Backrooms itself. For horror and suspense fans, you'll especially love the creepy nature of the film and the palpable sense of fear it creates with sound design, camera movement, and tension building. In general, though, know that you're going into a film that is honestly mostly a slow burn, with some moments of high intensity. No matter how this film is received, though, I think it presents a very strong debut feature for Parsons, and I'm excited to see what he does next in his filmmaking career. Whether it's more Backrooms films, more horror films, or maybe stories told in completely different genres. Okay, now for some of the more spoiler-specific elements of the film. Turn off now if you haven't seen the film, go see the film, then come back and watch the rest of this video. Okay, here we go. Let's talk spoilers. Early on, Clark discovers the Backrooms and tries to convince Mary that it exists. He brings a map and states that he'll prove it to her. I kept thinking during this exchange, why doesn't he just take her there? He makes the reveal of this place seem so difficult, and in reality, he could literally just take her there and show her it directly. In fact, I'm not sure why he doesn't monetize the Backrooms. Considering the fact that he's struggling to make ends meet with his business, I'm surprised the entrepreneur didn't just come out at him and say, I'm going to sell tickets to the Backrooms. I'm sure he'd be shut down pretty quickly once the authorities figured out what he was doing, but still, it seems like an easy way to make a few extra bucks. Toward the end of the film, we learn that the Backrooms are some kind of alternate dimension with a memory of its own. So it's less of a place and more of a living entity that shifts and changes as it learns more about the real world and the people in it. We see both Mary and Clark being shifted into this alternate reality as different beings that are being misremembered. While I find this concept fascinating, I wish we had gotten a little bit more to work with regarding the lore and story behind the Backrooms. I understand that there is a need to hold back and leave the audience wanting more, but this just felt like a wasted opportunity to give fans who have been watching this series and theorizing about it for years just something more to hold on to. As I mentioned earlier, the story is, for the most part, well acted, and the character arcs are generally believable. The only real arc I just didn't fully buy was Clark's going mad and ultimately becoming a killer at the end. We know Clark has anger issues, right? But he's never presented as some kind of psychopath who would or could become a murderer. While we realize that he's been in the Backrooms for an extended period of time by the time Mary comes to actually look for him, we don't know how long he's been there, and we don't know how much he's been obsessed with the place. In general, I feel this turn toward the darker side with Clark felt a little rushed and unearned. For example, we learn that Clark killed one of his employees because we see her severed head in a refrigerator. While the scene is suitably shocking, it doesn't really earn its shock. It just appears. I'm sorry, but anger issues do not just equal murderer, and Clark never comes off as a murderer type, just a stressed out individual who gets angry easily. The fact that Clark is basically insane by the end of the film, again, doesn't feel built up to or explained in a way that would have been appropriately foreshadowed or, again, like I said, built up to. I think a few more scenes showing this de-evolution of the character would have been much stronger when we finally get the reveal. Finally, the explanation of what the Backrooms are and how they came to be is ultimately unsatisfying because so little is actually explained. I'm glad that the film includes async and the mysterious company's explorations into the backrooms, but I was just disappointed by really how little is revealed about them and ultimately their motivations. While the film keeps the door wide open for sequel fodder, which I like, I would have appreciated a bit more detail into really what's going on behind the scenes and why. They mention concepts around the idea of memory, and they hint at something to do with the concept of CAT scans, as apparently Async was a company that manufactured CAT scan machines. In all, I'm sure that these details I missed will show up in a rewatch, and I know the theory community will delve into it once it's out there on digital and they can rewatch it over and over again. But again, I still would have liked something more to grasp onto. And I say that only because I think an uninitiated audience might be a little bit turned off by the obscureness of the mystery, especially if they've never seen the videos and they have to wait for a sequel. Maybe this will encourage them to get into the YouTube video installments, which I'm sure Parsons has already continued to develop future episodes because, again, there's going to be something between now and the next movie that hopefully comes out in the future. Overall, I'm excited to rewatch the film at some point and seek out and find those little details I missed. But tell me what you think of the film. Comment down below your thoughts and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so I can bring you more of these reviews. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've been David J. Murphy. This has been an Around the Lens Reel review, and we'll see you in the next one.